Have you ever wondered what people say when they know the end is near? Not in a movie, not in a dream, but in the real, quiet, unfiltered moments when life begins to slip away? Hospice nurses know. They are the last listeners, the final witnesses to the most honest words a human being ever speaks. And what they've heard will stay with you forever. Because when all the noise of life fades away, when no more status updates matter, and the phone stops ringing, and the calendar no longer counts down to anything, what's left are whispers, often filled with pain, sometimes filled with peace, but always filled with truth. These nurses, standing quietly at the edge of life and death, have noticed patterns, common words, common emotions, common regrets that echo in room after room, face after face, heart after heart. And what's haunting is not just what people say, but what they don't say. No one talks about their job titles. No one asks for their awards. No one begs to check their bank account one more time. Instead, they look into the distance, sometimes at nothing, sometimes as if they're seeing someone, and they say the same 5 things over and over again. These regrets are not unique to one person. They belong to all of us. And if you're lucky enough to be watching this while your heart is still beating and your story is still being written, then please don't look away, because what you hear today may change the rest of your life. The first regret is whispered more than any other. It comes with tears, with choked voices, with trembling hands reaching for nothing but memories. I wish I had stayed in touch. People near the end often realize that they let years pass without a phone call, that birthdays came and went without a message, that friendships quietly dissolved into silence. Hospice nurses say it's one of the most heartbreaking confessions. Men and women who look back on decades and suddenly feel the weight of the people they let drift away. Not because of hate, not because of anger, but because they were too busy, too distracted. And now, with only hours or days left, they cry over the phone numbers they never dialed, the visits they postponed, the apologies they never made. One woman, barely able to speak, asked a nurse to write a letter to her college roommate, someone she hadn't spoken to in 37 years. She said, "Tell her I never stopped thinking about her. Tell her I wish we had more time." That letter never got a reply. The nurse sent it, but it arrived too late. And the woman passed away 3 days later with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I hope she knows I cared." That's how it happens. Regret doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sits quietly beside your bed, asking why you let love fade into silence. And the painful part? It's a regret so many of us are carrying right now, without even realizing it. So if there's someone you haven't called in years, someone you once laughed with, cried with, or simply miss, reach out. Don't wait until you're out of time. And if this regret hits something deep inside you, if it reminded you of someone you still think about, someone you wish you hadn't lost touch with, type yes in the comments right now. You're not alone. You're not the only one who feels that ache. Let's not carry it in silence anymore. The people who've passed on can't tell us what they regret, but hospice nurses can. And what they've heard should wake us up. Because that first regret, it's not just about the people we lost. It's about the pieces of ourselves we left behind with them. Stay with us. Because the second regret is one no one wants to admit, but it may be the most dangerous one of all. The second regret doesn't come in a whisper. It often arrives with a sigh, a distant stare, or sometimes an unexpected burst of anger, not at others, but at themselves. Hospice nurses say it's one of the most common and painful truths people confess near the end of their lives. I wish I had lived life on my own terms. These aren't people who failed. Many were successful, some were deeply respected. But as their final days approached, they realized they had spent years, decades even, chasing approval, following expectations, and silencing their own dreams. They had lived how others wanted them to live. They took the stable job instead of following their passion. They stayed quiet to keep the peace. They dressed a certain way, believed certain things, married who they were told was good for them, stayed in roles they'd long outgrown, all to avoid disappointing others. One man in his 70s clutched his bedsheets and said, "I lived my whole life being the son my father wanted. I never became the man I was meant to be." His voice trembled, not with fear of death, but with grief for a life unlived. Another woman, a retired teacher, confessed to a nurse that she had once dreamed of being a travel writer, but gave it up in her 20s because her fiancé said it was impractical. She never left the country. She never even got a passport. And now, staring at the ceiling of her hospice room, she said, "I should have at least written one article. Just one." These are not rare stories. They're everywhere, buried under layers of politeness, routine, and what we call being realistic. But when people face the end, their vision clears. They no longer care what others think. They no longer need to fit in. And that's the tragedy. Many people only realize who they really are when it's too late to become that person. Hospice nurses say the pain of that realization is unlike any other. It's not just sadness. It's a kind of spiritual ache, a mourning of the self, because deep down, they always knew. They knew what they loved, what they longed for, what made their heart race. But life got loud. People told them to be safe, to be quiet, to be realistic. And so they folded up their dreams like fragile letters and locked them away. And now they wonder what might have happened if they had just said yes to themselves. If this resonates with you even a little, type yes in the comments. Yes, if you've ever done something just to please others. Yes, if you've ever silenced your dreams because they didn't seem practical. Yes, if you've ever wondered what your life would look like if you had just trusted your gut. Because the truth is, this regret doesn't belong only to the dying. It already lives in the hearts of many who are still alive. But the difference is, you still have time. You still have a choice. And that's the beauty of hearing these regrets now, before they become your own. So ask yourself, are you living for others or for yourself? Is your daily routine aligned with your soul or with someone else's idea of who you should be? These questions may feel uncomfortable now, but they are far kinder than the ones people ask themselves in their final hours. One nurse said a patient grabbed her hand and whispered, "Don't do what I did. Don't wait until you're dying to live." That sentence has echoed through her ever since. Maybe it will echo through you too. Maybe it's supposed to. Stay with us, because the third regret is the one people carry silently for years, often without even realizing it. And when it finally surfaces, it brings tears almost every time. The third regret doesn't arrive like thunder. It arrives like rain, slow, steady, and soaking through everything you thought was secure. Hospice nurses say it often comes in the stillness of a half-lit room when the family has gone home for the night, when the machines hum quietly in the background, and the person lying in bed finally allows themselves to remember. Not what they did, but what they never said. It's the kind of regret that makes even the strongest voices falter, the kind that doesn't scream but chokes. Over and over again, in hospice rooms across the world, dying people repeat the same heartbreaking phrase. "I wish I had told the people I love how much they meant to me." They don't say it with bitterness. They say it with sadness. Because the pain isn't from being unloved. It's from being too afraid, too distracted, too busy to say the words that mattered when they still had the chance. Nurses describe husbands who never told their wives how grateful they were. Parents who never said, "I'm proud of you," to their kids. Siblings who let rivalries silence their bond. Children who never asked, "Mom, what were your dreams before you had us?" One elderly man lay in bed holding a frayed photograph of his sister. They hadn't spoken in over 25 years. He looked at that photo, his thumb gently rubbing the faded edge, and said to the nurse, "She was my best friend when we were little. I don't even remember why we stopped talking, but I miss her every day." That night, he asked for paper and a pen. He could barely write, but he insisted on crafting a short letter. "I'm sorry. I miss you. I love you. If you ever get this, I hope it's not too late." The nurse mailed it. The sister received it, but 2 days after the man passed away. She never got to speak to him again, and now the regret belonged to her too. That's how it works. Unspoken love becomes a chain reaction of pain, passed from person to person. We don't say "I love you" enough. We think people already know. We assume our silence still carries meaning, but silence can't hug. Silence can't reassure. Silence can't heal a heart that's questioning its worth. Another patient, a woman in her 80s, told the nurse that she had 3 children, but had never once told them she admired them. Not because she didn't, she said she thought about it all the time. She just never found the right moment. When asked if she wanted them to come visit so she could tell them, she shook her head and whispered, "I don't want them to know I waited until now." That, the nurse said, was the saddest part. Not the lack of love, but the weight of withholding it. And the truth is, most people don't even realize they're carrying this regret until the end. We get caught in the day-to-day. We text emojis instead of calling. We react to posts instead of writing real letters. We tell ourselves there's always tomorrow, but one day there isn't. And what's left are all the words we locked inside, the affection we never expressed, the forgiveness we never gave. People on their deathbeds often cry not just for themselves, but for the ones they're leaving behind, still wondering if they were truly loved. And if you're watching this, ask yourself honestly, have you told the people in your life how much they matter to you? Not just in birthdays or holidays, but in ordinary, quiet moments? Have you said, "I'm proud of you" to your children recently? Have you told your friend how much their friendship saved you? Have you looked your spouse in the eyes and said, "You are still the best thing that ever happened to me"? If you haven't, that's okay. But please, don't let that silence become your story, because this regret, more than almost any other, echoes long after a person is gone. It lives in the what ifs, the "I wish I'd said it," the memories that should have been full of love, but instead feel unfinished. One nurse shared that a man passed away just minutes after his daughter arrived. She collapsed by his bed, weeping, saying, "I wanted to tell him I forgive him." And the nurse said something that shook me. Maybe he waited for her to come, and once she was there, he could go. That's the kind of love we're talking about. Quiet, unspoken, but still waiting to be seen. Don't make your loved ones guess how you feel. Don't make them piece it together from old photos or side glances. Say it, write it, whisper it, shout it if you have to. Because the words we withhold today become the regrets that haunt us tomorrow. And if you're someone who has carried this kind of silence, type yes in the comments. Yes if there's someone you need to call. Yes if you wish you had said something sooner. Yes if this hit you deeper than you expected. And maybe, just maybe, type their name too. Let that be your first step toward healing. Let this video not just be something you watch, but something that changes what you do next. Because saying "I love you" doesn't cost anything, but not saying it, that can cost everything. Stay with us, because the 4th regret, the one we'll share next, is even more personal. It has nothing to do with others. It's about you, and the parts of yourself you may have ignored, suppressed, or neglected for far too long. And when the dying speak of this one, it shatters even the strongest hearts. The 4th regret may be the most overlooked, but hospice nurses say it cuts the deepest, because it has nothing to do with relationships, jobs, or lost opportunities. It's the regret that comes from abandoning yourself. So many dying people whisper a version of the same heartbreaking realization: "I wish I had taken better care of myself." It sounds simple, but it's not. They're not just talking about eating healthier or exercising more, though many mention that too. They're talking about the way they ignored their body's pain, silenced their inner voice, and constantly put their needs last for the sake of others. One woman, just 62, spent her entire life as a caregiver, raising her kids, then her grandkids, then caring for her husband through a long illness. When she finally entered hospice, she looked at the nurse with a hollow sadness and said, "I don't even know what I like anymore. I gave so much of myself away. There's nothing left." Her eyes didn't hold anger, just emptiness. Others talk about their stress, their burnout, their buried emotions. So many confess that they pushed through migraines, chest pain, fatigue, and emotional breakdowns, all because they thought being strong meant never stopping. One man in his 70s broke down sobbing, saying, "I wish I hadn't laughed off that pain in my side. I wish I'd gone to the doctor earlier." He'd been too busy working, too stubborn to slow down. By the time he saw a specialist, it was too late. Another woman said, "I spent decades making sure everyone else was okay, but no one ever stopped to ask if I was." She smiled bitterly. And the truth is, I never asked myself either. This regret is universal, especially among the elderly, especially among women, especially among those who spent their lives holding others together while quietly falling apart themselves. Hospice nurses say that in the final days, many patients speak of themselves not with pride, but with guilt. Guilt that they didn't rest more. Guilt that they didn't say no. Guilt that they pushed their needs so far down, they forgot they even had them. And maybe you're watching this, realizing that you've done the same. Maybe you've ignored your health. Maybe you've always said yes, even when you were tired, even when you were drowning. If so, type yes in the comments. Yes, if you've ever felt invisible while making everyone else feel seen. Yes, if you've ever ignored your pain to keep peace. Yes, if you're realizing that self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary. Because the people who regret not taking care of themselves aren't selfish people. They're loving ones, giving ones. And they simply never learned how to give to themselves. But you can. You still have time. You still have breath. Use it. The fifth and final regret, the one that nurses say breaks the silence of even the most reserved patients, is this. I wish I had allowed myself to be happy. Not fake happy, not polite happy, truly, deeply, quietly happy. The kind of happiness that comes from living with honesty, choosing joy without guilt, and giving yourself permission to feel peace even when life is imperfect. So many people, nearing death, suddenly realize that they spent most of their lives postponing happiness, waiting for the right moment, waiting to retire, waiting for the kids to grow up, waiting for the house to be paid off, waiting to lose weight, waiting until they felt deserving of rest, of travel, of laughter. But then life passed them by, and they never danced in the kitchen. They never watched the sunrise just because. They never bought the cake or wore the dress or sang out loud in the car. One woman whispered through tears, I kept waiting for the world to calm down before I let myself enjoy it, but it never did. And now, I'm out of time. That's the thing. Happiness doesn't always arrive with a trumpet. Sometimes it's in the smallest of choices, the walk you didn't cancel, the meal you made just for you, the laugh you let escape even though no one else was around. Nurses say that some patients smile in their final days, not because they have no regrets, but because they finally stopped chasing what they thought life should be and started appreciating what it was. That peace is possible, but for many it comes too late. And that is what breaks them. Don't wait. If you've been putting your happiness on hold, type yes in the comments. Yes, if you've ever told yourself, I'll enjoy life when. Yes, if you've been waiting to live fully. Yes, if you're ready to stop waiting and start savoring. Because life doesn't wait. It never has. And it won't start now. But you can. You can make today the day you choose joy. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are still here. You are still breathing. And as long as you're breathing, you still have time to change how your story ends. These 5 regrets, the things people say when everything else falls away, aren't warnings meant to scare you. They are gifts, a chance to rewrite your own ending, a chance to avoid the quiet heartbreak so many have confessed, a chance to love better, speak louder, rest more, forgive faster, and dance longer. If this video touched you, tell us in the comments. Type yes. Type the name of someone you'll call. Type the word change if you're ready to take even one step forward, because the final regret doesn't have to be yours. You're here now. And that means it's not too late.